Hej och välkomna alla som tittar på den här lunchsändningen fredag eftermiddag. Jag heter Martin Schibbye, är chefredaktör för Blankspot och har fått det stora nöjet idag att prata lite med en av Etiopiens mest kända bloggare och människorättsaktivister, Atnaf Brhane, som är här med mig idag i studion. Han är inbjuden av Civil Rights Defenders till Sverige och deltar i ett antal seminarier och intervjuer. Och intervjun kommer att hållas på engelska. Vill ni ställa frågor under sändningen så skriv i kommentarer så försöker vi fånga upp dem, eller så kan Atnaf eller jag fånga upp frågorna i efterhand. So welcome to this interview by me, Martin Schibbye, editor-in-chief for Blankspot. And I'm here with Atnaf Brhane, who is a human rights activist, IT engineer, a blogger, and you are famous, or your blog collective, Zone9 Bloggers, are famous for your work during a difficult time in Ethiopia's history. And it's a story that I don't think everyone in Sweden are aware of. So I just want to start with asking you, how come that you quit your job and started blogging?
Thank you, Martin, for having me here. It is a really pleasure. To give you a little background, it's not. I didn't quit my job when I started blogging. Actually, I was blogging while I'm working as well. But you know it very well. The political situation was in Ethiopia, especially the regime was very repressive in the last 10, 12 years. After the 2005 election, there were many journalists sent to jail and handed a life sentence, and many civil society were forced to close their office. Many newspaper seized publications and fled the country. And there was no any alternative voices in the Ethiopian media sphere that can speak for the people. And that was really bothering people like me and my friends. Prominent journalists that we know, that we appreciate, that we really admire, were sent to jail. One of the journalists was Skender Nega, who was released last year. And Reot Alamu, who was in Galiti prison and brutally treated while she was in prison. No one used to visit her. No one was allowed to visit her in most of the years that she was in Galiti prison. And Wishat, you have been with Wishat, I think.
Yes.
Wishat Taye, he spent 7 years in prison. You know how humble he is, and he doesn't deserve this kind of treatment anyway. They were very brutal, and they tortured him, and they sent him to Kalite and Zoi prison, and he spent 7 years in prison.
So you were visiting these jailed journalist colleagues, Wubshataye, Riot Alemu, and Skender Nega, at the Kalite prison, listening to their stories.
Yeah.
But then telling the world what they had told you is something else.
So visiting these imprisoned political prisoners, it wasn't somehow normal in Ethiopia. So I and my friends and I start to visit them and to let them know that someone is outside of prison thinking about them it's very encouraging. And we used to do that every week. So we used to visit Skandernega, Riot Halamu.
We have a picture of that prison, of the main entrance to the Kalite Federal Prison. So were you questioned by the guards when you made these visits?
We encountered a lot of challenge when we visit them. It's not the normal time that they are allowed to visit. It is usually in the afternoon for 15 minutes. But while the other prisoners has the privilege to get visited for longer time. But these political prisoners, it's not comfortable even to talk to them because the guards stand next to these prisoners and you listen every conversation that you had. And if it's a political conversation that you are having with the prisoner, the guard will stop you and take the prisoner inside. So it wasn't allowed, and it's very scary. I mean, it's not like this before. I mean, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the context was different, and it's very scary. And even in the city, in the cafes, no one talks about politics. It was very scary. Now everybody is in Ethiopia politician.
Yeah, we will come to that. But still, under this kind of climate of fear, where journalists were jailed, where political opposition members were jailed, you choose to co-found the blog Zone9. And there was a talk I know in Kalite, if someone was going to be released, because Kalite consisted of 8 zones, people would jokingly say that, now you will transfer to Zone9, and you picked up that name, and like Zone9 was the nation itself. But from where did you have the guts to do that? And many people, must have warned you about starting such a blog.
So it happened in 2012. My friend and I went to Kalite Federal Prison and visited Riot Alamu, Hirut Kufle, and Mawayish Alamu. These are political prisoners. So they were referring the outside as Zone9, and we were confused. And I asked them to explain, and they said that Kalite has 8 zones which the prison admin used to separate prisoners from prisoners. And so that we are in Zone9, they refer the outside as Zone9 because we only have relative freedom, but also Zone9 is a big prison that we don't have freedom to speak and freedom to write. So we only have relative freedom than the prisoners. So we were very surprised and fascinated by the expression and how it's described the then context in the countries where the country was in. So and we went out and we were having lunch with friends around Kalite, and we start talking that, guys, we should talk and write, and we should create our blog so that we can produce articles, talk about these prisoners, talk about the constitutional rights, talk about our freedom. And we agreed, and we were suggesting names. And one of our friend, Jomanix Kasai, who lives in here, he picked the name Zone9, and we all shouted and agreed. That was a good name for the blog. And we agreed, and we get ourselves, we agreed to write articles and to do campaigns on social media. And we created even blog, which unfortunately gets blocked in a week time by the government. But we used social medias to post those contents.
I remember from these days, many people were warning you, saying that this is very risky in Ethiopia. And I mean, there were people within your blog collective that say, no, we are just following our constitutional rights. We are not expressing anything illegal or anything that's violating any law. But how were? I mean, did you after you started it? There was kind of you passed the point of no return.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, tell me about that time.
The people were right. It was very dangerous, but we had to choose. There is a time that you feel that you want your freedom and that all the things are covered for you, like you can see it. All those people who speak for us were in prison, and that's really bothering. I mean, how do you sleep at night while people who are speaking for you incarcerating and creating and Zone9 and campaigning for them was the little thing that we can do. I mean, we were somehow revolutionary back then, and the Arab Spring was there, and we were very inspired. And anyways, we decided to keep going. Then after a few months and the late Prime Minister has passed away, that was also a big point because there was no anyone to replace him back then. That was that created a political gap in the ruling party, and there was no going back. Which is, I mean, Mallas was a dictator, and it was a good opportunity for the country. So we keep pushing and campaigning for constitutional and democratic rights in Ethiopia, freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. And
you're hoping that power vacuum after Meles Zenawi would create change in a way.
So,
but then Haile Mariam Desalegn was appointed.
Yeah.
And I mean, a few months later.
A few months later, Haile Mariam was appointed, but then no one took Haile Mariam Desalegn seriously. Meles was big, like he has no mercy. He is brutal. So his days was a bless for the country. I believe that. So after he passed away, we knew that there is a huge gap created in the ruling party. So it was a good opportunity to push our ideas and to push the government to release the political prisoners and to open up the space. And somehow there were rumors that they're following us, but we didn't see unusual things, so we just keep doing our jobs, and we hear that from a very credible sources that we are on the list of the National Security Service, and we agreed to tone it down and to work underground on the grassroots. So we reduced our online presence, but we start working on the underground, like train journalists, activists on the underground, which is much better than it is less visible, but it's a huge work. So we focused on that, and the work that we do was time-taking. So I had to quit my job. I used to work as the local administration as an IT expert. I had to quit my job. I quit, which also that also created somehow a problem, because after they arrested us, the interrogator used to ask me why I quit my job. That I am sponsored by foreign agents, and it was hard to explain, and they don't understand your cause, so they don't understand it. I mean, I quit my job because I don't like it, and to pursue my cause, but they don't understand it anyway. Anyways,
so you were arrested, and all of you were arrested. Not at one point, but eventually.
Yeah.
Was that a shock to you?
Yeah, I freezed. It was a shock because I had never had a conversation with any police officer before. I was 25 back then. I was with one of my friends with Bafkadu, and they caught us around Pole, which we were at some hotel around there, and we went out, and we got surrounded by plainclothes security officers, and they take us to our house. Somehow we were expecting it because, I mean, in the Brazil, I was giving a digital security training before a month ago. I was giving a digital security training for journalists, and this plainclothes security officers surrounded the training hall, and they were talking about the training that we were, the issues that we were discussing, and they left anyway. But we knew that
you were on the radar.
Yeah, we knew that we were on the radar. So, and the next time, one of our partner from Article 90, Patrick Mutahi, he was coming to meet us from Kenya. We were giving a digital security training for journalists with the help of Article 19, and they deport him from the airport. And he told us that the security officers are onto us. So it was somehow clear.
It's also an interesting development because here you had started to adapt to a situation with surveillance and teaching others to use, I mean, encryption and what kind of apps to use in your phone and so on. And then, I mean, the state answers with criminalizing.
Yeah.
Just having that app in your phone was, I mean, something that they later on would charge you for. Just having some kind of encryption tools would be, illegal.
Yeah. I mean, having those tools still, it's not illegal in Ethiopia, but they somehow change it the way that criminalize you. For example, they found a digital security guide in my house when they searched it. It's digital security any box. So they translated it in Amharic and presented it in court, saying that he's giving trainings for terrorists how to communicate with bypassing the telecom infrastructure to create chaos in the country or something like that. You see, they somehow changed the issue and presented as it is a crime act. So I mean, we knew that they are onto us. So after a few months, I mean, after 1 month, I think, they arrested us and they take us to Mark.
When you're, I mean, arrested, and especially during your trial, because there were a lot of hearings, you were taken to, I mean, the federal, I mean, court over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And there is a growing, I mean, solidarity all around the world for your case.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one. We can show one picture of how that campaign looked, where it said like "Free Zone9 Bloggers." How did that feel?
So it feels great. Well, for the first 3 months, we don't know. People are shouting for us. We don't know. I mean, you know, Makalai, how it's impossible to access any media outlets there. So we were in Makalai, Siberia. It's locked 24/7. We only got out for interrogations. So we have no any information how they're how people are reacting to our arrests. But after we got formally charged, we moved to Clinton prison, federal prison. So in there, people start visiting us, and they used to update us a lot. And in every press statement that every human rights organization issued, and it was very encouraging. And
we can show that poster from those days where it says free Zone9 Bloggers on one of those pictures. Shows up. So you were suddenly, you started with visiting jailed journalists. And now you were on the other side.
I was on the other side, and it paid off. I mean, many people whom we don't know visited us and encouraged us in Clinton. We were a little bit even famous inside the prison that they call the bloggers. So it was amazing to experience that. I mean, there are also the positive side, not always the bad. I mean, the experience is difficult, passing through all those tortures, but this also gives you hope while in prison. Like, we knew that the world isn't silent, that they are talking about us, and it gives us strength back there. And I'm really grateful for all the good work, including you, actually, for shouting for us.
And you spent 18 months in prison. And during those 18 months, the solidarity for you are growing all around the world, but there is also something happening, within Ethiopia. There is a growing, movement for change among young people. Did you feel that while you were in prison? Did you get reports of these events?
So it is right after we got arrested that the Oromo protest started.
Yeah. We can show a picture of the Oromo protest where people are having their hair hands in the air.
Many students got arrested and came to Makalai, and we were senior in Makalai. So they were updating us because they are the new arrestees. So they were updating us. We knew that something is going on. But for so long, it was quiet while we were in prison because there was elections. Many politicians got arrested. Also, people who used to visit us in prison got arrested, and it was really surprising because some of them were very frustrated and tried to cross the border to Eritrea to join the rebel group, and they got caught, and they joined us in prison. So we know that there was the people wants to change, and there is a tension. It was clear that back then it was clear that it will explode one day, and by the time we got released, it's already the protests were across the country. and later Amhara protests start erupted. And these two regions are the biggest region in Ethiopia, even population-wise, even it's the biggest. So they like account 65-70% of the population.
So you're locked up, and Ethiopia is boiling.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, suddenly in January 2018,
Yeah.
Haile Mariam Desalegn gives a speech.
Yeah.
And he says that all political prisoners will be released. At this time, you're out on bail.
Yeah, I was out on bail.
What went through your mind when you heard this?
It was surprising. So I was following live on the TV, and I was tweeting, and people were calling me. Are you right? I mean, they thought I'm writing something fake. So
because they also said all political prisoners will be released, and the people in ongoing trials will also be released.
Yeah,
that was they were talking about you.
Yeah, they were talking about me, but my case was also so when I got acquitted in 2016. So the prosecutor appealed, but I was released. Appealed, and I had to go to Supreme Court every time. So the Supreme Court decided that I have to defend my case, but not in their terrorism charge. They downgraded to inciting violence, even if they find me guilty. Already I have done my time because I spent 18 months. So well, it wasn't about me, but people like Anwala Marage, who is serving lifetime sentence. People like Iskandar Nega, who's been there like for a while, and Wishat Tai. It was unbelievable that I am meeting these people out of prison, and it's really great. I mean, it's exciting. It was exciting to hear this from the Prime Minister's mouth. So and eventually my case also dropped. And so I mean.
But how do you explain this? I mean, historical change.
Yeah,
they managed to, I mean, put you in prison, but they didn't manage to keep you in prison.
Yeah.
What is the explanation? What are your thoughts on this? And what role did, I mean, social media and blogging and those issues play?
So the way I understand it, I think they realized that there is no going back, because the protest. So people. These political figures and activists, including Zone9 blogging collective, they used online medias. They used online medias to campaign and to mobilize people underground. So by the time they block social media, they block the internet, especially in Amhara and Oromia regions, the protest was on the ground. So there was no going back. Already the regime was hated, and people start avoiding fears, and the fear was eroded. I mean, you can hear even. You read how the state of emergency and the command post was pictured by the people. It was very scary. But after the second state of emergency, I mean, people get normalized things, and they didn't consider it as big thing. And
so once people wasn't afraid anymore, then change was possible.
That was inevitable. Like, it was impossible to avoid the change, and they had to change themselves to get accepted by the people again. And I really admire the reformist group inside the PRDF who was committed to bring this change. And I think that decision also still keeps the country together. Had it not for it, the country might have fallen apart, and it was a wise decision to bring this reform. And yeah, it was a very, very exciting moment. I mean, IPRDF, when you see IPRDF, I thought it will stay like 40, 50 years as an authoritarian regime, as authoritarian party. But in few years' time, it's scrambled, and even now there is no IPRDF. It's there is a new ruling political party called Prosperity Party, and now.
But for someone, if there is, I mean, a blogger in an authoritarian state, I mean, watching this, what would you say were the key lessons from the work that you and others did during these years?
So
to bring about this change.
I mean, they should be adventurous and take the risk. I know it is very difficult. They might get arrested. They might get killed. But if they are truly believing what they are doing, I suggest them to keep doing that. And but also they should be safe. It's up to their changes in. I mean, unthinkable thing happened in the world, and authoritarian regime. It's known they will fall apart one day.
I mean, there have been many reforms in Ethiopia since the release of political prisoners. There have been peace agreements with, I mean, local rebel groups. There is a peace treaty with Eritrea. There is a new cabinet of ministers, which consists half of women. There's a women president. I mean, which of all these are new laws? Which of all these changes, from your perspective, is most significant?
All of them are significant. For example, the civil society and charity proclamation is one of the tools that the regime used to crack down the civil society community. And it's now repealed and amended. And even now I co-found an organization called CARD with my friends with the new law, and we are functioning legally, and there's no any pressure against us, which is good. So there are laws that are reforming that has been it's in discussion to reform those laws. I believe they will finish it soon. But also the new Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is a kind of a person who can think out of the box. And when you see the peace deal with Eritrea, I mean, you know how Isaias is a brutal president. He is so arrogant, and making peace with that person it's a success, and we shouldn't undermine it. It was a huge success, and it's about time that this deal will expose Eritreans to new things, and they will bring change in their own country. So the peace deal it's a great deal. Also, I mean, all political prisoners are now free, but there are some political prisoners inside Ethiopia. I can't say 100% is clear. There are political prisoners, I believe, but compared to the previous administration, it is. I mean, it's not even fair to compare it. Like the PLF was the most brutal regime that we had, and it's not fair to compare it. Yeah.
But having this, freedom now, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, new organizations starting, new media outlets starting, how do you, how do people use that new freedom?
Yeah, we didn't get used to freedom.
Mm.
Yeah, that was clear. Like in 2005, we had many free newspapers, medias. Even the state media was relatively free back in 2005. The civil, we had vibrant civil societies, but the repression in the last 12 years eroded everything. So we have to rebuild that. The journalists, they need capacity building. Some of them are not ethical. The people didn't get used to freedom, and they don't know how to react for things. Even the civil society are not that much strong right now because they are new. Like only few months they got registered. So it is a process. But we are better than the last 6 months. So once these things are getting normalized, I hope we'll be fine. But as I said, there are many media outlets. Some of them are with the good content. Some of them are not ethical. And there are national ethnocentric media outlets, which is bad for the country. But there is no any laws that ban ethnocentric media outlets. But they talk only about their ethnic and how they were marginalized by the other ethnic groups, or they talk about how these ethnic groups are taking all the government power, and it's somehow created a competition between ethnic groups. I don't advise people to watch those medias, but there are also good medias, so they don't sensationalize. They only report what they see. Even their one-to-one interview is good. But it is a process that I hope we will not have this kind of media in the next year, because eventually people will understand their interest and how these medias are bad, and they move to the better one. Yeah.
But in a way, was it easier when there was a dictatorship and everyone was against it? It was kind of and now when there is a freedom of speech and things are more complex, people need to find a new role within this new situation.
Yeah, it was easy. Back then, asking the government to release all political prisoners makes you politicians. Now we have free space, and these politicians need to have a clear ideology and policy to bring for the people. Like they need to talk about policies, how they can transform the country into a better one, how they erode youth unemployment. So it needs knowledge. It's not as easy as that was risky, but this one also needs knowledge-based arguments. So I suggest all politicians to talk ideas than grievances, and to reconcile people. Because there is a huge mistrust with people right now, and some of the political activists and the political figures are using this as an opportunity to grab power, which is I don't know if they get elected how they are going to represent the people and feed the people. I don't know how, but they are using this gap to clinch into power. I mean, there are some politicians who has a clear ideology, a clear policy, but most of them are not good. I mean,
but even, I mean, the new Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has been criticized, for example, when he closed down the internet in some areas of the country. And people were saying now he's using the methods of the old regime. I mean, what were your thoughts when the internet was closed again, and what consequences did that have?
So the consequence, the context is somehow different. I don't agree with any measures against the internet. I don't believe that solves any problem. But back then it was to the government used internet to stifle the people's voices and to stifle any protesters. Most of the time, the protests were peaceful. There was no any attack against any groups back then. Now, communal violence are being common. It's getting very common. I mean, even last month it was very disturbing that around 86 people were killed. Even the government admit that 86 people were killed in Oromia region. So the context is different, but it is somehow a trend for the government. I mean, shutting down, suspending the internet is becoming a trend and answer for every little problem that the government should address. But I only say that, like, for example, when they closed down internet in Somali region, there was a violence. The shutting down the internet didn't prevent the violence happening. Only prevent the information being circulated. Only the violations, the gross human violations that happened in Somali region didn't get reported through the internet because internet was down back then. So it didn't prevent the violences, only prevent the reporting. So it shouldn't be answer for everything. But as I said, there was an Internet Freedom Forum that happened in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, on September. It was the biggest internet forum in Africa. One of the government state minister were on the stage saying it was very unfortunate that they shut down the internet because they don't have enough security to cover the situation, to control the situation across the country. But they promised that it won't happen again. But it was a good promise. I mean, but the government should work on securing the country than shutting down the internet when everything happened in the country.
Our time is running, and we had one question from one of the viewers who asks that you're not blogging anymore as Zone9. Why is that? So is it because you want there is a political like disagreement within the group, or what's happening with the Zone9?
I mean, we grow apart actually. So we are still friends, but somehow some of the Zone9 members are studying outside of the country. Some of the Zone9 members are more interested in media, and they are doing media-related works, which is a great thing. And I am in civil society. I co-found a civil society with my friends. So Zone9 is not functioning right now, but we are still friends, and we have the same goals. I mean, we want the country to be democratic, and we are doing that in every direction, which is actually, I think it's great, because we cannot work on only in one thing, since our goal is democracy, and we are working toward that in different directions. But still, I respect all of Zone9 members, and we still meet and communicate. And now Zone9 is somehow history.
Zone9 is it's a historical movement, and thank you so much, Atnaf Brhane, for sharing your experience, and looking forward to follow the developments in Ethiopia and the developments for your NGO in civil society.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.